Internationally renowned spiritual teacher who has broken all the rules for more than a decade. She is dedicated to guiding and assisting others in transcending both dual and non-dual perspectives, as well as navigating the post-awakening territory leading to liberation. Wow. Chairman, okay.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
As I was thinking about material for this talk, am I echoing?
Yes, okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
I changed my position. It's okay. As I was thinking about material that I could explore in 45 minutes, the topic of bypassing. While we're aware of spiritual bypassing, which is using a spiritual concept to avoid some part of regular life, to call on some higher text, scripture, concept in order to avoid getting down and dirty with real life, daily knit and grit. And so it led me to maybe we need to pull off different topics and deal with them individually. Rather than spiritual bypassing as a whole, let's start dividing it and seeing what's involved, because maybe the same resolution is not appropriate for these pockets that we habitually turn to avoidance. That led me to money. Why money? Because money, like the internet, is made by human beings. It doesn't grow in trees. Anything that is made by human beings, pure consciousness, is using our brains, using our intellect to manifest as money, as social media, as cars. These things that are not of the earth organically have to use our mind to come into manifestation. What happens in our mind? Conditioning, bullshit, trauma, negative patterns, how we were reared, pressures on society, our own self-worth, self-esteem. And these influences shift, hijack, reorient what would naturally be a movement from consciousness into something that looks a little bit more askewed, full of traps, flaws, lack of integrity. So let's look at money as one of these human-made essential items that we deal with every single day, and how is it that money is the way it is right now, and it's quite a different thing to how it might be if we move from our inner true nature in dealing with money from that basis. When I looked at what is the source of where spiritual bypassing may have come in on the topic of money, I hit against vows. Vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Traditionally, in spirituality, when something sticky came along, well, let's just put rules around it. Because what else are we going to do? Get down and dirty with what? Money, sex, and power? Really? No. Easier to put a rule in front of it. So let's put vows in place. Withdraw money, sex, and power from people who live in a spiritual way. And by withdrawing, then we take away the problems, we take away the issues. I'm not too sure that the issues really disappeared at all. Some transcended it, but there were very, very few. What happened is that money, sex, and power went underground. And now that the vows, I'm jumping. Okay. Now that we're moving into a type of spirituality that isn't relying on vows or the structures and frameworks of religion, what we're finding out is that we're going to have to address money, sex, and power. We're going to have to look at what would consciousness do here without saying, I'm spiritual, I'm above money, sex and power. It's bullshit, it's no longer washing. Thankfully, we live in a time of more transparency and where accountability is being demanded. Not even just in the cultures that used vows to keep the guru does not touch money, quote out of a Neem Karoli Baba book. Money goes around the guru, it never goes through the guru. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, hello, welcome to the 21st century. It's not going to wash, thankfully. So other cultures, how did they take the spiritual person away from a mess, which doesn't have to be a mess, but our minds have made it a mess. So what they did was, well, let's place a God in front of you and the obstacle. God in front of you and your object of desire. Here's Lakshmi. So what do? Well, you don't bow down to money, you bow down to Lakshmi. But the money is hiding behind Lakshmi all the time. So sooner or later, as we discover that the divine is within, that we can use an external deity on the outside, we can use a teacher on the outside as a temporary fix until we discover that it is all inside of ourselves. All of it is inside of ourselves. So how do we embrace money inside ourselves if we don't go through a springboard, a bounce back sound barrier of a vow, of a deity, of a rule and regulation, of how it should be? If we don't go have that sounding board, if we don't go through that external protector, what are we going to do with money inside ourselves? Because for sure, because it's human-made, your mind is absolutely the barrier between you and your relationship with money. There is no option here but to get down and dirty with your own mind. A lot of rules, huh? And now that we're moving into this era, where the vows are dropping, as I get older, I'm learning how to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because there's always some good in something that came into being. It was serving something positive in some way. And trying to extrapolate, okay, what was useful about the vows? This is the best I could come up with. That vows led to a value system, and that a value system led to virtues. So it became virtuous to be poor. Meek shall inherit the earth and all that kind of stuff. Humble and poor. Oh God, they've got nothing. They just are not materialistic. And this is a good thing, is it? It's just one way to live. It's just one lifestyle. But we've given it value, and we see it as a virtue. Poverty within spirituality is seen as virtuous. Bullshit. Really, it's just bullshit. So when I was looking at, okay, what can I learn out of vows, values, virtues? Here's what I came up with. What's the contemporary model that has that organic movement towards a useful value system and towards virtues that are appropriate for the time we live in now? And here's what I came up with. The external vows are ethics. It's ethics. And a code of ethics can be drawn up for our culture. There are codes of ethics. There are freely available codes of ethics. If they're not in your professional life, go to the ASI website for a code of ethics, for how to work as a spiritual leader in any capacity, from counseling to yoga to coaching that engages spirituality, right through to being a spiritual teacher. Live by a code of ethics. Let your personal and professional life be led by a code of ethics. They're cultural specific. You can't get these from your true nature. You can't, because there's too much of our mind engaged in ethical norms. We've got to find out about the law. We've got to find out about how to respect other people in spite of differences. How do we honor and support each other in a loving way and not shame each other? How do we communicate? And a code of ethics is what helps us to do that. Now here's the shift that I haven't seen happening. Number one, the shift for everybody working off some external code of ethics who's involved in spirituality is the first big step. The shift to internalizing that's where spiritual maturity comes in. How do you align internally? Are you needing the external rules to tell you how to behave? Or do you have them in your being so that your mind is aligned with the movement of pure consciousness that comes through you? That's spiritual maturity. That the external dualistic lens of perception is lined up with the internal non-dual unified field, the non-dual lens of perception, so that it's a free flow and it's smooth from one to the other. That's the process to have external ethics moving to internal ethics. When ethical behavior is internalized and it's part of you walking your talk, you're in integrity. And that's how we arrive at a spiritual integrity. It's through those steps. That's what I think is a more holistic, accountable, honest call to action that we need to do as spiritual leaders right now. Let's not throw out all of the old model. We've got something to learn from everything that has been there before. So we've got to rethink our relationship around money, power, and sex. No matter how I was looking at money, I kept coming up with money, certainly in Western culture, gives you power. Power is related to sex. Sex is related to money. And the loop goes around and around and around. Now, the external world has that system of valuing money. We have no clue in the spiritual world what it's going to look like, because we have not yet cleaned up our act and gotten clean relationships with money, clean relationships with power, clean relationships with sex. Will the model have the three interlinked in the same way as they are in the regular world? I don't know. That's what we need to bring a conscious awareness to find out how is it going to look. What would be the new model? We're not there yet. We can only do it through walking our talk. Let's be conscious about our relationships with money, huh? So what are you worth? That's a figure, no? But yet worth has a hugely different meaning in terms of your spiritual path. Your self-worth is an entirely different thing to your financial worth. Even the language is messed up. Even the language. How are we going to pull one away from the other? And is your sense of worth connected to your net worth? How overlapped are they in each of us? Do you feel like you're a loser if you're broke? The culture that I live in now, which is in the US, I see evidence of that around the place. Looking at getting down and dirty with money. And it's funny, I'm hearing myself saying down and dirty with money. And I prefer to be in the place of getting honest with money, getting transparent with money, becoming at ease with money, which we touch every single day of our lives in some way or another. Even if you don't put your hand in your wallet, you are using money, we're consuming every day, things that cost money. We have to become transparent and honest in our relationships with money. But what have we done? Oh, I don't know what happened there. What we've done is put a little bubble around ourselves, because it's just safer to stay away from it all. I'm advocating a positive relationship with money, sex, and power. Try to pull them apart from each other and see them all as positive, beautiful creations of manifestation. Funny, you know, what I've noticed increasingly with people who have a very strong spiritual practice of gratitude, and it's important to me also to have an attitude of gratitude. What I've noticed is there is a misreading of what their own needs are. So finding out what our needs are in the world, yourself, financially, what are your own financial needs? If you have an attitude of gratitude, you tend to not hear what your needs are. You tend to just not be listening to something inside. So while spiritual practices are hugely beneficial, in some way they're, as well as you know, the transparent bypassing that we know about, or the obvious bypassing that we know about, we have things that are spiritual practices that totally I advocate in my own teachings. I advocate. But when they're overused, they also will be used to avoid listening to what our own needs are, finding ways to address our own needs. Embrace money, power, and sex. Have a positive relationship with the three. This is the only way to do it, huh? There are energies that move. What meaning, what value, what virtue have you ascribed to money? We're called to be conscious in contemporary spirituality. To be conscious, we have to walk our talk in all aspects of life. And so our consciousness has to penetrate every part of life, every part. Celebrate the fact that the vows are no longer of use to us. And let's do the work that they have never done in these traditional spiritual cultures. Let's do the work. Let's find out what it would look like to have a healthy relationship with money. If we model freedom from traditionally unexamined values, maybe spiritual people will find themselves getting rich, getting wealthy in financial terms. Would that be okay? Is there a resistance up inside you? Because it's completely against the stereotypical image that we've all come to have. Sometimes I see things in terms of energetic patterns. You know, kind of like it really is a matrix, and it really is a matrix, this phenomenal world. And when something hasn't been here before, there's a lens of perception that my brain interprets as there's no pattern here. What's the pattern of consciousness when it's not been, you know, hijacked by fear or hijacked by external greed, or what's the pattern? And there is no pattern. There is no pathway, no model. We have to learn how to do this. Consciousness has not walked in this way before. Little drops, sure, but it's never gone into mass consciousness. And that's the shift that we have to do, because spirituality is changing. And thankfully, accountability and transparency is being demanded of us. Thankfully. Let's rise to it. We're going to screw up as we redefine our relationship with money. We're going to screw up. Let's not judge each other, but support each other. Let's give feedback to each other. Oops, did I put my? Yeah. Interestingly enough, the tools that you already have as a spiritual seeker are all that you need to make a good stab at a new paradigm for money and spirituality. Your conditioning around money, the conditioning around your family, conditioning around your relationships, you've seen this a gazillion times, huh? What's your emotional connection to the topic? Does fear arise? And the discipline around what we do with it. I'd like you to be in a place of where every dollar is within your command, that you are deliberate about where you put every bean. Rather than, I don't know where my money goes. Oh, it's just slipping away from me all the time. What would it be like for you to be the master of your mind and the master of your bank account? It's the same principle. It's the same energy that is flowing from us around. Your brain does not have to be the king of your body-mind mechanism, where you are running after it, trying to keep up.
Excuse me, could you just move a little bit that way so we cannot read the...
Oh, pardon me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I'll meander again, but here we go. So pull on your spiritual tools. One thing that I discovered as I was researching this, people who are extraordinarily wealthy, like, billionaires, they have the same fears around not having their needs met as people who have no interest in money at all, and people who are living below the breadline. The fear is there regardless of what their bank account says. So our emotional connection with money isn't based on logic, it's based on learned, conditioned responses. And what does the commercial world do? It plugs right into that, right into that. It knows where your fear button is. And off we go, commercialization. And again, you're running after something. Just like you're being a slave to your thoughts. You can be slave to your emotions around money too. It's a hiding place. Money is not going to solve your money problems. That's the most essential baseline, to really recognize that money will not solve your money problems. That's not the source of your money problems, it's not. Inner investigation, back to spiritual tools. Inner investigation, awareness, discipline, focused intention, will. And you can try, and it works sometimes, it never works all the time. You can try to take that position that is laced with a bit of spiritual bypassing, that position of just praying for money, of just visualizing money, of seeing it coming in. It works some of the time. I did it like 15 years ago, that's what I was doing. I was visualizing it and it came. It totally worked. But it was full of avoidance and I didn't know that at the time. It was full of avoidance. All the package of conditioning around money was just parked to the side. And if I'm going to be truly honest and walk my talk, I've got to go into all of those hidden pockets. You've got to figure that out for yourself. Can you walk your talk and use awareness, discipline, inner investigation, self-inquiry around your relationship with money? Can you do that? And still pray in money, visualize money? I couldn't. Maybe you can. Oops. So here we are again. I was led to asking this question because it's a question that's of our time, and I just have a vision that maybe in 50 years' time that there won't be the need to ask this question. But right now, spiritual teachers are seen as being the model of something. They're given the benefit of the doubt. This needs to break down, but I don't think we're there yet. It means students, clients of spiritual teachers and spiritual leaders taking their power back. It means them calling out their teachers. It means them facing the barrage of spiritual bypassing that their teacher might be so soaked in deep into, and doesn't actually want to, or is not ready to take responsibility for their own blind spots. That's the culture we live in right now. So in the interim, until students know that, yeah, a teacher is a model, but so is my friend, and so am I when I look in the mirror, and so is my true nature if I listen in meditation. Until we're at that place of where the model of our highest good comes from us listening to pure consciousness, and our mind is so transparent that it bows down and it serves the divine within us. Until we're at that point in a critical mass, sorry, spiritual teachers and leaders, we have to model something better. We have to model something better. Because there's going to be an automatic transference into, the sage who's there in a diaper, who, yeah, poverty, they don't need anything, therefore they've transcended money. Bullshit, they probably ran away from it. They're probably scared of their life of it. And maybe, sometimes I've seen this, that in subtle ways they're giving hints to students about giving them money. This is what happens, huh? So let's, in the interim, until we're mature enough, let us be, if we're spiritual leaders, let us be more transparent around how we model money. So it means us doing the work on it ourselves. And are we prepared to have a for-profit instead of a not-for-profit? How do we charge when we get a barrage of students who say to us, why are you charging for your teachings? What do we say? And can we stand in ourselves saying, yes, this is actually my job, my vocation, and I have no choice to do it. This is how I need to show up in the world. And yes, my integrity says I need to be paid for it. So that's one way of doing it. How else can we model as spiritual leaders? And we each have to find our own way to have transparency, to be authentic to our true nature. What is the connection between pure consciousness when it comes through a human-made device, and how do we maintain the integrity all of the way right down to the buck in your hand? What does that look like? This is what I have seen in the model so far. When wealth increases, lifestyle increases. And this is a consequence of not being consciously aware of money, sex, and power. This is another place where the three of them tie up together. Really, being conscious around the lifestyle that supports you will mean that it stays pretty much the same. Pretty much the same, regardless of how much money you have. It really should. Is your lifestyle directed by income or by conscious awareness? It does not matter how somebody else projects their image of how you're doing onto you. This is about an inner gig. As with all spirituality, it's all on the inside. Even though money is a thing on the outside, the work is inside. So what does an embodied awakening look like in the financial world? We don't know. I would love to see huge transparency coming from spiritual leaders who are wealthy, whose life path has gone that way. I'd like transparency. I really would. Model it, please. Model it, please. I tend to have call to actions a lot. It means pushing against every model of what spirituality has looked like for thousands of years. Every part of our lives have to shine with transparency. And how we've learned along the way, the steps we have taken towards that place of external ethics, internal ethics, integrity, we need to share that process with each other. Walk our talk. Please, let's walk our talk. Even the definition of enough. In my first book, this is what I wrote. All you need is food, shelter, clothing. And that's where I was living from at the time. I'm a bit older now, it's like 10 years later. I've got a few more needs. That's not enough. It's actually not enough. Food, shelter, clothing. It's not. It's not. I might be able to stop working sometime. How am I going to do that? Pray for it? No, I can't do it. There's so much bypassing involved. I can't do it. So recognizing, what is your definition of enough? What is that? Don't let it come from external, huh? You have to do the work yourself. You've got to engage with this energy of money inside you and drop the bubble. The protection that we have enjoyed for thousands of years, let it go. We got to do better than that. If we can make these transitions that I'm suggesting, some of us will be called to making a lot of money in order to create that new ethical pattern for others, in order to abolish the myths around poverty and spirituality are together. If that is going to happen, then maybe if that paradigm of money, sex and power is still in place, the power that could be given to people who have money could change politics globally. What would it take to have somebody who's done their spiritual work, yet they have made money, yet they can be involved at a global level, yet they are welcomed into power structures? Wouldn't that be refreshing? There we can see huge change politically. And I don't know who those people are, but in naming that this is where we can go and it can do something hugely positive. There is no need for global hunger. There is no need for the planet to be in the mess that it is. There is no need for these things. There is no need for war. There is no need for people to have dirty water any place on the planet. No need for it. But we need to embrace the very things that have brought other people to the position of power to make those situations happen. So let our conscious awareness bleed into every part of our life. And let's see what happens. I really think where spirituality is going is that we can make a huge difference in the things that are of the world, things that are human-made. We need to do spiritual work in order to soften our conditioning and our emotional responses and our memories and our hard-earned experiences of life, our traumas. And instead of those things dictating how we show up in the world, let's be clear, transparent, honest. Let's keep evolving as human beings so that that still beautiful consciousness that manifests through all parts of our being is not hijacked by a messy mind. And maybe something good can grow from money. I think so. Thank you, folks. There's 10 minutes for Q&A if anybody's interested. There's a roving mic.
What did you mean in one of your slides, you went really fast, freedom modeling? Is that kind of like what your conclusion was? About?
Yeah, we don't know what it's going to look like. So I think it's really important that we don't judge people who are going to step out, because the old is gone. But we judge people who are stepping out and doing something different because it doesn't look like what has been trusted for thousands of years. And we've got to give those people a break and say, okay, what can I learn from this? Like, they're brave enough to do something different. I want them to tell us, this is what I learned from the process. And so that we don't all have to reinvent the wheel, but there is a new wheel being created. So can we be transparent about our process, about what the learning curves were, what the pitfalls were? Like personally, I have no pull at all to get involved in the stock exchange, none. In 5 years' time, would I move towards ethical organizations? That feels okay. But right now, I have no interest at all in it. So I'd love if we had websites about, all right, with no agenda here at all. I'm not a middleman, invest in my company so that I take care of your spiritual money. None of that bullshit, none of that bullshit. But for us to personally find out how can I do it, what's authentic from my place of internal ethics, my place of integrity. What does that look like if I am called to the stock exchange? So it's that kind of modeling that has to come for a while. And I just see people being judged because they're stepping out of the mold.
Can you give examples of who's stepping out of the mold? Greta.
Yeah, those who are, so, okay, Ajay Shanti spoke last night. Yeah, sure. He seems pretty clean. He's one of the cleaner ones for sure. I'd love to know, what was your transition from being reared in poverty? How did you make that transition? What happened inside you? And what do you do with your money now? Did your lifestyle inflate? How big is your house? Like, Come on, just tell us. How did you do it? What did you learn? Tell us. That kind of modeling. These are the conversations we need to have so that we can judge for ourselves. Does that feel authentic for me? What can I learn from this? How can I do better than those who are modeling? Because that's what it's about, no? It's taking what we know and doing something better.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Sure. Thank you for the question. It's a good one. Yes?
It's sort of along that, but like I really don't know anyone in this capitalistic model that is modeling, okay, am I taking into factor what's my carbon output as I fly across the world in my private jet or whatever? How much am I giving and to what integrity? Is the industry that I'm involved in a positive? Because I think Jeff Bezos said he was going to go carbon neutral with Amazon, but you've got to look at Amazon's entire footprint. How did this guy get to be the richest man in the world? And he pays his employees like nothing. I mean, and it's almost creepy when you read some of it, and it's across the spectrum. I don't know anyone with $1 billion who couldn't give some away and end world poverty. So, do you know of anyone at that level of the Davos crowd that is actually living the values that we're talking about?
Microsoft.
Warren Buffett, he only lives on $100,000. He's a big proponent. That's a good example.
There's a group of them, of very wealthy people. There's an organization, isn't there?
The Gates Foundation.
Yeah, Bill Gates is doing it. There's a few of them that have come together to donate a proportion of their wealth every year.
But they're still making money off capitalism that's destroying
totally
the
with
planet.
you. And this is why I think it's got to come from those of us who walk the spiritual path. I think it's about us, because we can expect them to come over to our value system. Really? No. Why should we? If they do, perfect. And usually in their later life, they can afford to have spiritual values. But most of us came from spiritual values first, and we're like, I don't know how to engage in that world. It's a mess, so it's easier to judge it and stay out of it.
Right.
I'm saying, no, let's us model it.
It takes time.
Yeah, it takes time, it does.
It's happening.
It is happening, and I want to name it and say, come on, let's actually do the work, because I don't think there is a pure enough model from the commercial sector. I really think, I'm very happy for the people who are doing it later on in life, or maybe they're doing it for cool reasons, they might be doing it for marketing. I have no idea what their inner motivation is, and I do question it. I do question it. Money's still going, albeit with an energy that mightn't be the purest thing, but money's still going to where it should go. Okay, that's a really good step. More of that, please. A lot more of that. But rather than us expecting the wealthy to come there, let us walk our talk and see what it would look like from us. And that's where I think the real global transformation can come from. Yeah, the guy and then the lady the other way.
Last question, please.
Can we just do two?
Just quick, I'm curious, you were asking about Ade Ashanti, but I'm curious what you do with your money. If you're not in the stock market, how do you invest, or do you have any tips from your own life experience?
Yeah, we finished paying off our house, but it's a 2-bedroom, and the second bedroom is my office. So we bought a small house that we could pay off, and we paid it off this year. It's finished. And what I need to do is and we're researching a lot on how to make passive income, because I can't work at this pace. I'm in my 50s. How long can I do this? I don't know. But I'm going to have to kick back a little bit. Maybe, I don't know how I just feel I need to make passive income. So that's what I'm doing right now, is finding ways. And it might be rentals. It might be rentals because I'm not drawn towards the stock market. It's just a bit too dense for me. So I'm learning. I've discovered the FI movement. Financial independence, and the younger generation are calling it FIRE, financial independence, retire early. It is a fantastic network that's quite international now, but started in the US in 2011, of people who want to be financially free. Financial independence is the idea, so that they don't have to work for a living. They are doing spiritual work totally, and not using any of the jargon that I was conditioned by. None of the jargon. There are podcasts available. It's just incredible. And they speak about, yeah, now I don't have to work for a living, so I can do things that are my passion. I find myself doing this. And it's like, they're listening to pure consciousness. I can totally see what's going on, but they don't call it spirituality. You know, and there's even a meditation on one of these financially independent ones, because they're expecting the stock market to crash next year because there's so much global instability. And they have a meditation on how to let go when you lose everything in the stock market, you know, next year. You know, and it went viral. You know, I'm like, it's just beautiful. So it's happening from another sector. I just want to catch this woman. I know I'm out of time.
Just maybe if you have like a platform for the transparency that hopefully emerges.
Yeah, great idea. I promise to do that. Okay, I'll make a commitment to do that as I make steps. Yes. Thank you. Will do. Thank you all.